In front he saw a boundary ever unreached, and thought himself at each step nearer now, a far retreating horizon of mirage.
So he feels that he's getting nearer to this boundary,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a mirage, a
Mm-hmm.
horizon of mirage. He's not there yet.
Yeah.
And this is very important to understand because Sri Aurobindo is going to continue now about this vagrancy.
A vagrancy was there that brooked no home, a journey of countless paths without a close.
So this vagrancy is a state of wandering from place to place where there's no permanent home there. It brooked. Brooked here is an interesting word. It means it tolerated or
Okay.
it didn't put up with any home.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't tolerate any home. And therefore it was a journey of countless paths without a close. And that's an important aspect here in Sri Aurobindo's yoga because he has to find the one path that he can take, even though all paths have no close.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, huh? So now the next lines are very important.
Nothing he found to satisfy his heart. A tireless wandering sought and could not cease.
So in this plane of existence, nothing satisfies his heart. He can't find anything. So he's wandering tirelessly, he's seeking tirelessly, and he can't even stop doing that.
Mm.
And Sri Aurobindo will tell us why.
There life is the manifest incalculable, a movement of unquiet seas, a long and adventurous leap of spirit into space, a vexed disturbance in the eternal calm, an impulse and passion of the infinite.
Hmm. Very interesting place. The manifest here is evident,
Mm-hmm.
obvious, apparent, incalculable. And the incalculable is too great to be calculated. Very simple. So um, then Sri Aurobindo uses the word manifest again.
Mm-hmm.
Manifest incalculable, manifest obvious, of course, patent, I would say it's patent, it's evident, a
Mm-hmm.
movement of unquiet seas, a long and venturous leap of spirit into space. Now, when we venture something, it always involves risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's always hazardous.
Mm-hmm.
And a vexed and irritated disturbance in the eternal calm. Now, Sri Aurobindo tells us in the letters on yoga that calm is a still, unmoved condition which no disturbance can affect. It is a less negative condition than quiet. Interesting, huh? So here it's a vexed disturbance in the eternal calm. An impulse and passion of the infinite.
Assuming whatever shape her fancy wills, escaped from the restraint of settled forms, she has left the safety of the tried and known.
So this is the experiment of this glory and fall of life in that plane. And she is just taking on any shape that seems good to her. And it's an impulse and passion of the infinite, of course. And but she has escaped from this restraint of settled forms. There are no more settled forms here. So everything is kind of vague and unsafe, in fact.
Mhm.
Escaped from the restraint of settled forms, she has left the safety of the tried and known. Okay?
Unshepherded by the fear that walks through time, undaunted by fate that dogs and chance that springs, she accepts disaster as a common risk. Careless of suffering, heedless of sin and fall, she wrestles with danger and discovery in the unexplored expanses of the soul.
Ah, quite an experimental aspect to this plane of existence. So we see that she's unshepherded, she's not guided
Mhm.
by this fear that walks through time, but she is undaunted also by fate, that dogs, and remember what dogs is, and chance that springs. She accepts disaster as a common risk. She's not she's undaunted, she's not dismayed or discouraged even by disaster.
Mhm.
That is as a common risk. And then we go to the next page and we have careless of suffering, heedless of sin and fall. She wrestles with danger and discovery in the unexplored expanses of the soul. Well, we see that there's no form really here. We heard that a few sentences before. And she is in these unexplored expanses of the soul. And then this incredibly powerful line.
To be seemed only a long
Yeah,
experiment.
to be seemed only a long experiment.
To be seemed only a long experiment. The hazard of seeking ignorant force that tries all truths and, finding none supreme, moves on unsatisfied, unsure of its end.
Yeah, I would say the pronunciation should be hazard.
Hazard.
Hazard. The
Hazard.
hazard of a seeking ignorant force. So she tries all these truths and doesn't find any one of them supreme. So she moves on,
Mhm.
unsatisfied, unsure of its end. As saw.
Sorry. As,
Okay.
yeah. As saw some inner mind, so life was shaped. From thought to thought she passed, from phase to phase, tortured by her own powers or proud and blessed, now master of herself, now toy and slave.
Yeah, and you have to read those a little bit differently. See, she is tortured by her own powers, or she is proud and blessed. So,
Mm-hmm.
tortured by her own powers, or proud and blessed, now master of herself, now toy and slave. So Sri Aurobindo gives us both aspects
Mm-hmm.
of this plane.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that she's moving from phase to phase, trying all these different truths. She's moving from thought to thought, passing on from phase to phase, and she's tortured by her own powers. Or she's happy about them. She's proud and blessed. She's master of herself, but she's also toy and slave.
What is blessed?
Blessed is another way of Blessed.
Okay. A huge inconsequence was her action's law, as if all possibility must be drained, and anguish and bliss were pastimes of the heart.
Yeah, as if all possibility must be drained, and anguish and bliss were pastimes of the heart. Interesting, interesting phrase that she wants to drain all possibilities. And so doing that or attempting that, anguish and bliss were now the pastimes of the heart. So it's almost painful to read it.
Yeah. In a gallop of thunder-hooved vicissitudes, she swept through the race fields of circumstance, or, swaying, she tossed between her heights and deeps, uplifted or broken on time's inconstant wheel.
Lot to share with you here, so we'll go slowly. Of course, the vicissitudes are the changes and variations that occur in the course of something.
Hmm?
So, in a gallop of thunder-hooved vicissitudes, she swept through the race fields of circumstances. So I discussed both of these with Alok and Jamur.
Mhm.
And Alok says, she here refers to the force and energy of life. Well,
Mhm.
of course, it's life on this plane. The many hued events of life that are woven by the complex play of forces were for the power of life a game, much like a hurdle race to be crossed over. So Jumur has a much longer answer. She said it's the field of expression, of manifestation. It's time and space, the forefront of our existence. And life moves through the field of time and space. Perhaps circumstance, which was capitalized, is when we are unconscious and don't know where we are moving. We call it circumstance, unconscious life. If we were conscious, we wouldn't call it circumstance. Time, place, and circumstance define the proper outline of the subject. We are surrounded by certain conditioning factors which dictate their will. We are slaves of circumstance and have no freedom until we become masters. Quite good. So this life force is swaying, tossing between her heights and deeps, uplifted or broken on time's inconstant wheel. Inconstant is changing, varying. And now you have to continue.
Amid a tedious crawl of drab desires, she writhes, a worm mid worms in nature's mud, then, Titan-statured, took all earth for food, ambitioned the seas for robe, for crown the stars, and shouting strode from peak to giant peak, clamoring for worlds to conquer and to rule.
Yeah, so we have a few pronunciations here. Conquer.
Conquer.
The U is not pronounced.
Okay, conquer.
Conquer. And then I have to go way back here because there's so much about the Titan stature. But we've been through that. She writhed, writhed,
Writhed.
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 Yeah, writhed.
Writhed.
Yes, yes. So there's this tedious, this tiresome crawl of drab desires. In that she's writhing. She's like a worm mid worms in nature's mud. She's squirming, she's struggling, thrashing about, writhe. And then we see, then Titan statured took all earth for food. And this Titan is a capitalized T.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the Titan of Greek mythology, the one who wants a tangible mastery over the world, a domination. And he wants to become like a supermental being, but by everyone underneath his foot.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Superman of nature.
Yes, it is, but it's the Titan who calls for a visible, tangible mastery and a sensational domination. How shall he feel sure of his empire unless he can feel something writhing, there's the word, writhing, helpless under his heel? If in agony, so much the better. And then Sri Aurobindo goes on and on about this being. He is the Asura. He's the vital giant and demon. And he is superhuman in his force and movement. So, in the end, he says in the essays Divine and Human, the old writings call the Titans the elder gods.
Mm-hmm.
So they still are. Nor is any god entirely divine unless there is hidden in him also a Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ambitioned, desired, seized for robe, crown the stars, and shouting strode from peak to giant peak, clamoring for worlds to conquer and to rule. Very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So please continue. We have a few minutes yet.
Then, wantonly enamored of sorrow's face, she plunged into the anguish of the depths and, wallowing, clung to her own misery.
It's an interesting word, this wallowing. I think we've discussed it once. Sort of rolling around
It-
like a water buffalo or something in the mud, enjoying the mud, wallowing. So sometimes human beings also can wallow in their own sorrow, their own grief, their own misery. And here she's clung to her own misery. So you can read a little bit more.
In dolorous converse with her squandered self, she wrote the account of all that she had lost, or sat with grief as with an ancient friend.
So here that wallowing is picked up by Sri Aurobindo again to tell us that she's sitting with grief as with an ancient friend. And she's writing the account of everything she has lost. So powerful. In dolorous, dolorous is mournful. If someone is dolorous, they're mournful. In dolorous converse, interchange of thoughts and feelings, with her squandered self. She squandered it. She wastefully spent it, dissipated it. She wrote the account of all that she had lost, or sat with grief as with an ancient friend. I think we can do a few more lines.
But of violent raptures soon was spent, or she lingered, tied to an inadequate joy, missing the turns of fate, missing life's goal.
So this romp, this frolic of violent raptures was spent soon. And Mother tells us that no passion is ever satisfied. She's very clear about that.
Mm.
Or she is lingering to an inadequate joy and therefore missing the turns of fate, missing life's goal. And I think that's a pretty good place to end.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to read.
Yes. In front he saw a boundary ever unreached, and thought himself at each step nearer now, a far retreating horizon of mirage. A vagrancy was there that brooked no home, a journey of countless paths without a close. Nothing he found to satisfy his heart, a tireless wandering sought and could not cease.
If I could just mention that it would be better to say close,
Close,
close, almost a Z, close.
close.
Otherwise, it's sort of like close, close. So
Uh-huh.
it's close,
Close,
close the door.
close. Okay.
Okay, good. Carry on. Nothing he found.
Nothing he found to satisfy his heart, a tireless wandering sought and could not cease. Their life, their life is the manifest incalculable,
Good.
a movement of unquiet seas, a long and venturous leap of spirit into space. A vexed disturbance is the eternal calm, an impulse and
So
passion.
that you want to do a little, a vexed disturbance in the eternal calm.
A vexed disturbance,
Ah,
a,
very,
a,
very
vexed, a vexed disturbance in the eternal calm,
good.
an impulse and passion of the infinite. Assuming whatever shape her fancy wills, escaped from the restraint of settled forms, she has left the safety of the tried and known. Unshepherded by the fear that walks through time, undaunted by fate that dogs and chance that springs, she accepts disaster as a common risk.
I
Careless,
would say no, I wouldn't. I would accent the second syllable. She accepts, not accepts, but she
she,
accepts.
she accepts disaster as a
Yes,
common risk.
yes,
Careless of suffering, heedless of sin and joy, she wrestles with danger and discovery in the unexplored expanses of the soul. To be seemed only a long experiment, the hazard of a seeking ignorant force that tries all truths and, finding none supreme, moves on unsatisfied, unsure of its end.
good.
As saw some inner mind, so life was shaped. From thought to thought she passed, from face to face, tortured by her own powers, or proud and blessed, now master of herself, now toy and slave. A huge inconsequence was her action's law, as if all possibility must be drained, and anguish and bliss were pastimes of the heart. In a gallop of thunder hoofs vicissitudes, she swept through the race fields of circumstance, or, swaying, she tossed between her heights and deeps, uplifted or broken on time's inconstant wheel. Amid a tedious crawl of drab desires, she writhed, a worm mid worms in nature's mud, then, Titan statured, took all earth for food, ambition the seas for robe, for crown the stars, and shouting strode from peak to giant peak, clamoring for worlds to conquer and to rule. Then, wantonly enamored of sorrow's face, she plunged into the anguish of the depths, and wallowing, clung to her own misery. In dolorous converse with her squandered self, she wrote the account of all that she had lost, or sat with grief as with an ancient friend. A romp of violent raptures soon was spent, or she lingered, tied to an inadequate joy, missing the turns of fate, missing life's goal.
Good reading, long reading. Very
Yes.
good. Very good.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.